Good morning, everybody. Just when you thought that some of the folks in Columbus had done everything that they possibly could do to try to make voting tougher in Ohio, they've really reached a new low. This action by some of the Republicans in Columbus yesterday in committee, voting not just as they already have to make it tougher to vote all across Ohio by taking away early voting and by trying to discourage counties from sending out absentee ballot applications, to actually try to basically blackmail counties in general, Cuyahoga County in particular, but trying to send a message to every county that they better not send absentee ballot applications, or else they're actually going to take their funds away and cut 10% of the local government fund. They've already cut the local government fund by 50%, by the way, but to do that is just absolutely outrageous. First of all, it's a violation of the home rule that we're guaranteed by the Constitution of the state of Ohio. Secondly, the only things we've talked about doing here in Cuyahoga County is to try to protect people's right to vote and make it easier for people's right to vote. For them to actually try to extort us and blackmail us by talking about cutting our funds, by the way, that we use for things like paying for sheriff's deputies, paying for food bank services, emergency services communications. Those are the things that we use these funds for that they're talking about cutting. It's outrageous, it's disgusting, and I think it's illegal. It's illegal because they are using all the power they have at state government, not just to pass laws that make it tougher to vote, but to actually try to intimidate local governments that are standing up for their constituents' right to vote. That is why today, after consulting with our law department, we are requesting that the Department of Justice launch an investigation into this behavior. It is not legal in this country to try to coerce people into suppressing the vote or going along with their plans to suppress the vote. It's not legal. It's not right ethically. And we also think it's not defensible legally. So we have turned over to the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Ohio, Steve Dettelbach, copies of letters that will be given to Attorney General Eric Holder. We're asking him to look into this matter because we think that it's unlawful. If the folks in Columbus think that we are going to be impressed or intimidated by these kinds of hardball blackmailing tactics, they have another thing coming. We're not intimidated in the least. We have had to take them to court before. I didn't do this lightly, by the way. I used to be an employee of the Department of Justice when I was a special agent with the FBI. I take these things very seriously. We haven't had to ask for this before, but they keep taking their efforts to try to make it tougher to vote to further and further extremes, and we're going to stand up to them every single step of the way. I'll take any questions that you might have, and Mr. McCloof is here if you ask something technically, legally that I can't answer.
So would you say this threat by the Republicans is actually punishing the citizens of Cuyahoga County for the decisions being made by yourself?
It's exactly what it's doing. I mean, these funds that they're talking about are not funds that are going to prevent us from doing what we're even talking about. These are funds that we use for everyday services, things like public safety services and EMS and supporting food banks. I mean, these are funds that we're entitled to, and we're allowed under our home rule power to do these things. And I've never seen anything like it. We've been talking to legislators that have served in previous legislatures. We can't think of any precedent where the state is going to say, if you don't agree with what state policy is, we're going to target you. This is targeting any county in Ohio that is willing to stand up to them on this thing. By the way, Tom, it's also an admission that they're not sure they're right about it legally, because they have passed this law that says that communities are not allowed to send out absentee ballot applications. Well, then that will be decided in the courts. Why, on top of that, did they say any community that does it is going to take a 10% hit to their local government fund? To me, that says that they are admitting that they actually don't have the legal authority to enforce what they passed a few weeks ago and the governor signed into law.
So you still intend to send out absentee voting applications, assuming council passes?
Our position has always been that we will send them out if they won't. So they have said they're going to send them out this year. That's fine. Maybe it won't happen. We won't have to do it this year, but we reserve the right to do so because they will not guarantee that they will continue to do so. And I think a lot of this has to do with 2016, and they will not guarantee that they will send them out in 2016. It would have been very easy for them to have one line in their legislation that just said, if we don't send them out, local communities can, but they didn't do that. They said, we're sending them out, and local communities can't under any circumstances. It's pretty clear what that was designed for.
So what do you do if the state actually does cut local government funding?
Well, I think they ought to be thinking about what they should be doing right now because I think they're facing a lot of legal scrutiny. I think that these guys are bullies. I think they thought they were going to get away with this. I had a reporter ask me yesterday, well, I guess you're going to have to back down now. Absolutely not. So they're going to be tied up in court for a long time with this. And I don't think they have a leg to stand on. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
So what would you take them to court if they cut local government funds?
We have a lot. We're just getting started. So I think we have a lot of legal avenues. We're already talking about taking them to court over the restrictions that they passed the other day. So we'd probably be ending up in court anyway. I mean, I thought their original restrictions on voting were illegal. Cutting our funds to try to pressure us to go along with it, I think is illegality on top of illegality.
So what kind of wrongdoing do you think might have taken place that would warrant a federal investigation?
Because we're talking about people's voting rights, and that's protected by federal law. That's something that people fought for in this country and demonstrated for, and that the U.S. Congress has created a protective system for that. And the things that we're talking about doing in Cuyahoga County are encouraging and helping people exercise their right to vote. And that's a state right, it's a local right, but it's also a federal right. And the Voting Rights Act protects those kinds of things. You have like I said, we might have been suing them anyway over their restrictions and their suppressive activities. But the fact that now they're using the power of the state to try to coerce us, to stop us from doing that, is, again, it's using state power in a completely inappropriate way to defend these same tactics, and we think that warrants an investigation by the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. Majid, you want to?
No, I would just say they're trying to do through coercive budgetary measures what the courts have stopped them to do in 2012. I mean, these issues have been litigated the 3 days before the election, and now they realize they can't win these battles in court, so they're trying to find alternative ways to get it done. And at the end of the day, you're suppressing the citizens' right to vote.
That's right. These things have been litigated, and we've won these things before. But what they're saying is, even if you can win in the courts, we're going to try to hit you in the pocketbook. By the way, it's certainly pointed at this county, but it's not just this county. Because, in my opinion, the timing of this is quite curious, by the way. Of course, we're supposed to have a vote on our legislation this afternoon, or this evening, so it's obviously pointed at us, but it's also sending a very strong message to other communities. They're saying, this is what's going to happen to you if you don't go along with our recent legislation, the Governor Kasich signed into law. Here's what's going to happen to you. They're trying to make an example out of us, and we'll see what happens.
What about the comparison that was put out, I believe, by Mr. Batchelder's spokesperson, Mike Ditto, who said, well, this is kind of analogous to when the federal government said if you don't comply with new levels of DUI requirements, we'll take away 10% of your highway funds. Is there a comparison there?
Yeah, that was a great comparison, I thought. They're comparing and equating the most fundamental sacred right that we have in a democracy, being voting, to restrictions on drinking and drinking while driving. If that doesn't tell you that these guys are living on another planet, I don't know what does. The fact is, having regulations for highway construction is a lot different than how do we express our opinions in a democracy. That's the highest standard that government or courts have enforced in terms of people's freedom or rights. If that's as strong as their argument is, you can tell why they don't want to go to court. You can tell why they're just trying to play hardball politics in a legislative environment, because these arguments do not hold any water legally in court, and they know it. That's why they're doing this.
Have you heard from the Justice Department yet? Have they said what they're going to do about your request?
Well, we just delivered it, so I mean, I hadn't checked my phone, but I don't. So we'll see. No, we have not yet. Haven't yet.
John Houston talked to our Columbus bureau today, and he basically said, I don't think that the state legislature should punish the citizens of Cuyahoga County for their leaders' errors. Do you feel that you're escalating the situation by, threatening a federal investigation?
No, not at all. When people try to bully you, you need to stand up to them. And when people say they're going to cut 10% of your funds if you exercise your rights that you're guaranteed under the Ohio Constitution, Home Rule, and the federal Constitution, they're the ones that are escalating it. And our job is to send them a very clear message that we're not going to stand still for this. And look, if Governor Kasich wants to take a leadership role, he can come out right today and make a statement on this and say he's going to veto it. He has a line item veto. He can take it right out of the budget. So let him come out. He can de-escalate the whole situation, come out and say that's not going to happen. So I'll look forward to his comments. I'm not holding my breath, because my guess is he will hide. That's typically what he does. If I didn't see Secretary Husted's remarks, if that's what he said, that's good for him. So the ball's in the governor's court. It's in Mr. Batchelder's court. It's in President Faber's court to say that this was a very bad idea and they're sorry and it won't happen. So we'll see what they say.
What election